but I'll go ahead and start recording. Yeah, so it's recording now. Okay, cool. Yeah, once again, welcome to our Java Winter Coding Camp. So the schedule for today is we're going to cover some basic programming topics like variables, operators, conditional statements, and we'll also have a fun game at the end. So make sure to pay attention to what we're teaching you. That way you can possibly win at the game we're going to play. These are some of the topics we'll be covering in the coming days, and if you don't know what any of them are, that's fine because we're going to be teaching them to you. In regards to asking questions during the Zoom meeting, you can type your question into the chat, or you can private message one of us officers if you don't want everybody to see your question. You can do that by going to the chat box in Zoom, clicking on the little blue box where it says to, and then selecting either myself, Madhu, or Kanishk when he comes. If you have any questions in between Zoom meetings, you can email us at peshcompsci@gmail.com. There will be homework, but don't think of it as homework. The purpose of the homework is to just review concepts we have covered that day. Because we're only meeting over a short time span, just 3 days, we want to make sure that you're understanding everything from the previous day, that way you can understand the next day's content. That's why we're going to be having homework. And if there aren't any questions, we'll go ahead and get started. We're going to be using an online website to code. That way you don't have to install any software. But before we get to that, we're going to discuss what programming is. So what is programming? Put very simply, is just telling the computer what to do. You give the computer some instructions or steps to follow, and it will follow those steps. And Java is one of many programming languages. Some places where it's used are Android applications, games like Minecraft, some stuff with servers. More than half of you are actually here because of robotics. You guys do robotics, and Java is one of the languages used to program the robots, and also programming competitions. And we'll go more in depth about all of these applications of Java and how you can use them at the end of our third day, once you guys actually know the language and are more comfortable with it. But now let's talk about what happens when you run code. What does it actually mean and what's happening behind the scenes? So this is over here is just some Java code, and you don't need to understand what it does. Well, all it does is just add up some numbers. But the main point is that the code that we write is called source code. So this Java code over here is called source code. But you may have heard that computers only understand zeros and ones. These zeros and ones make up a language called binary because there's only two different possible values, 0 or 1. And the computer only understands binary, but we write over here in languages like Java, which is called source code. So that's where the compiler comes in. And when we write our code, what happens is the compiler takes it and it converts it into byte code or binary, which the computer can then understand and execute. So this is just a really high level overview of what's happening when we actually run Java code. And now we're actually going to write our first program. So go ahead to this website, repl.it, and we will create our account on this website. So you guys can see my screen, right? I have the repl.it website pulled up. If you look in the top right corner, there's a sign up button. Everybody should be doing this because this is how we're going to be coding together. And everything we're going to be doing for the next 3 days is going to be hands-on. So you want to follow along starting now. So go to this website. I'll copy and paste the link into the chat. It looks like Madhu already did it, but here it is again. And I'll give people some time to go to that website. Okay, once you're there in the top right corner, there's a sign up button. So go ahead and click sign up. If you already have an account, then you can go ahead and log in. But if you don't have an account for repl.it, you can enter in your username, email, password, and click sign up. It's as simple as that. You could also sign up with Google. So if you have a Google account, that's a really quick way. Just click on that little icon, and then you can sign up. And we'll give you about 2 minutes to sign up on Repl. If you have any questions or need help signing up, you can type into the chat or unmute yourself.
Should I just put my my email that I use like outside of school?
Yeah, your outside of school email would be good. That way you can also receive emails from Repl.
So my school email?
You can use your outside of school one if you
Oh,
want.
okay, okay.
Once you sign in, it says the person, hey person, let's get started. First, set your username. What do we do after that?
So, did you go to this page and create your account?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so once that happens, just wait for everybody else to
Okay.
finish, and then we'll go from there. Yeah.
I don't have an outside of school account, so can I just use my school account?
Yeah, the school
Yeah.
one works fine as well.
Okay. Um, when I like signed up, it says like please verify your email
Mm-hmm.
and never mind.
So when I sign up, it says, "Hey, username. Let's get started." So what's your skill level? You just like put your skill level.
Oh, that actually doesn't matter. You don't. It won't change anything.
Okay.
Yeah. You can answer it if you want to.
And also, what about what are you most interested in? What do you have to put there?
Uh, just like I said, like whatever you put, it doesn't change anything, so you can answer it however you want to.
And
And you
also,
don't.
does the same thing apply with what languages are you primarily interested in?
For that
Yeah.
one, you can just select Java for now, but
Okay, then, thank you.
And it asks you to verify your email, but you can still do programming without having to actually verify your email. The point of verifying your email is if you need to recover your password in the future and for extra security.
When it says pick language, it says pick two more. Do we have to pick two more, or are we just gonna do Java?
We're just going to do Java.
Okay.
When we get to the part that says or start coding, we click on just Java, right?
Uh, Let me double check. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure you should just click on Java.
Okay, then, thank you. Oh, and also it says something like create new REPL.
Yeah, we'll go into that in a few minutes. We're just
Okay,
waiting
then.
for everyone to be finished setting up.
Okay, then, thank you.
If anyone is still setting up, just type in chat that you are so that we can give more time. Otherwise, we can continue on. Okay, that's fine. Just take your time. Well, we'll go over those instructions for now, so if you can just wait a few minutes, that'll be fine. But it seems like everyone is finished making their account. So if you want to continue, Sean.
yeah. So if everyone's finished, I'll just go back to REPL.it and sign in. Just a second. Okay, and now you should see this page. So REPL.it, and this is the home page. And I think many of you are asking whether you should click on this button, New REPL. If everybody sees this page, then we're good to continue. If you don't see the page, just let us know in the chat.
Most people will see a page similar to that. It won't like show you the hacker plan. It should show you just new replit on the top left. If you see that, then you should be fine.
Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and click on new REPL. And then we can create a new REPL. There's a couple of languages. We're going to select Java. And for the name of the program, we'll just call it Hello World. Like this. So Java and then Hello World.
I don't see an add new REPL.
Do you see the screen over here or something similar to it?
I see something like that.
Yeah, on the top left, there should be a button for new REPL. And just click on the link Yishan sent.
Oh yeah, there's a menu bar over here, so you may have to expand it and then click on it.
Oh, okay. I
Thank
see
you,
that.
Brian. Yep, so once again, click on new REPL, Java, and then type in Hello World for the name of the program. And then when you're done, click on Create REPL. So this will go ahead and create a new program for us. You can see it's generated some code. It says class main and some other things. Don't worry too much about that. I'll explain each step of what's happening. Just go ahead and get started by deleting the stuff on line 3. So we have these line numbers on the left, lines 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Delete the stuff on line 3 because we're going to write it from scratch, and I'll explain what everything does. So is everybody at this step? Do you see this? Okay, so in Java, the way that our programs are organized are into classes. And the name of our class has to be the same name as our Java file. So you can see we're here underneath the Files tab. We have this file called main.java. That's what's open right over here. And our class name has to match the name of the file. And classes are just ways to organize the code we run. The main function is the code that the compiler will actually execute. So whatever we write inside of our main function will be what actually runs and we get to see. So over here in programming languages like Java, C++, Python, we can display stuff to the console. And the console is this thing over here, this black box on the right. So in Java, to display something to the console, inside of the main method, so on line 3, we're going to type system.out.println. And this is the part where everybody should be following along. So we're going to type system.out.println. And after the println, we're going to type parentheses. Inside of these parentheses, so we have these two parentheses over here. Between them, we're going to hold Shift and type double quotes. So the double quotes is right next to the Enter or Return key on your keyboard. And inside of these quotes, we'll write Hello World. And then we're going to go to the end of line 3. So after the system.out.println, all of this, we're going to go to the end and add a semicolon. So this is what your code should look like. It should look exactly like mine. And what this println function does, as I said, is it displays whatever we put inside these parentheses. So we have these two parentheses here, and an opening one and a closing one. It'll display whatever we put inside them. And to actually see what our code will do, we'll go ahead and click this run button at the top of our screen. And when we press it, it will take some time to run. But you can see it displayed Hello World right over here. And this is your first Java program, so congratulations. You wrote a program and it prints out Hello World. We can go ahead and add more to it, play around with it a bit. So we can also print our names now. So we'll say system.out.println. And what this code does, just to repeat it so everybody understands, is whatever is inside these parentheses will get displayed on the screen over here on the right. So now we're going to display our names. So I'm going to put in some quotes, and I'm going to say my name is Ishan, and you can put whatever your name is. And if you run this, it will say, hello world, my name is Ishan. And you can see it displays that over here on the right. You want to make sure that you end your statements. Each of these is called a statement. In Java, each statement ends with a semicolon. So you want to make sure that you have that at the end of each line over here for lines 3 and 4. And has everybody gotten to this step? Are there any issues or questions? Okay, good. So if there's no questions, we'll go back over to our
My
presentation.
code isn't working.
I got a question.
I put my code, but it didn't come on the
Yeah,
new.
same.
Never mind.
Here, try copy pasting that into main.java.
Okay.
I have a question.
It still doesn't work.
Yeah, it is slow sometimes, so you probably have to give it a few seconds. And when you say it isn't working, is it giving you an error or is it not displaying anything?
It's not displaying it at all.
Yeah, it doesn't say anything.
On the bottom left panel, is there anything in red?
No.
No, nothing is. Like,
No.
it's all like black except the part with the
actually-
rectangle.
Sorry, this is a different screen than what my students have. So all of your messages come out on the right on this panel. So like where he says hello world over there, does it have anything in red?
Yeah,
Wait, we forgot to click run, I think.
yeah, there's a run button at the top in green. You should press on that.
There you go.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So so when I was like I did the exact same thing, but it's when I'm pressing run, it says compiler exit status. So
Is there any other messages in red?
Are you seeing what I'm seeing?
no. It
I
says
don't see them.
it says compiler exit status 1.
Yeah, same here.
That's usually an error, so that you should see an error message somewhere.
Yeah. Did you copy and paste this exactly as it is? Does it look exactly the same as this, your code?
Alright, let me see.
Because if you leave off a curly bracket or a semicolon or anything, it won't work.
Here, I'll paste it again.
Yeah, the way you get an exit status is if there's an error that is tested out. Make sure you have like the code, like you type it in exactly it is the way that Ishan has it typed in. Otherwise it might not work.
Yeah, I don't know what.
John, if you want to send a student and me to the break room, I can look at their code probably. Or send Kanishk or somebody.
Okay, is there anybody still running into that issue?
Mine is working. I did an I instead of an L.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. It looks kind of like an I. We'll discuss, actually that's a good time to discuss what println does. So println, the ln part of this print stands for line. So that's why it's printing each of these statements on its own line over here. If I deleted this ln at the end and I just made it system.out.print and I ran that, once it displays the output, you'll see everything is on the same line over here. It just says, hello world, my name is Ishan, all on the same line. So that's the difference between print and println. ln will add an extra line after it displays this. Yeah, right. So now that everybody's been able to do this and write their first program, we're going to go back to the slides and take a look at variables. So if you've ever taken pre-algebra or some sort of math class where you have an equation like y equals 2 or y equals mx plus b, you know that y is like a symbol that stores a number. Just like how we have variables in math, we have variables in programming. And all these variables do is store information. So over here you can see we have a 4. This is an integer. We have a 2.5, which is a decimal. We have an a, and this is a character. So if you look at your keyboard, you see like a parenthesis, you see the asterisk, the dollar sign, the pound symbol. Those are all characters. And then we have this word over here, and we call this a string. So if you see quotation marks, that's a string. And the main thing you should get from this slide is that variables are like boxes. They just store information. You give them values, and they store that so that you can use those values later on. And there are multiple different types of data. So for example, we may have integers like 100, 100 is an integer, and we may want to store it in a variable. So in Java, there are a couple of different data types for variables, and we'll be covering some of them. For integers, there are three main data types. There's short, there's int, and there's long. And int's in red because that's the one you'll be using most of the time. Like the names suggest, short stores a smaller int is medium-sized, and long stores a large integer. If you're working with large integers, you would probably want to use a long variable. If you're working with medium-sized integers, you'd want to use an int.
That's very good.
Just a second. Okay. But we cannot store decimals like 3.55 in integers because 3.55 is not an integer. Java has two different data types for storing decimals. It has floats and doubles. And doubles are in red because that's the main one you'll be using to store decimals. And they can also.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What's the difference between Java and JavaScript? Because I know a bit of JavaScript.
Yeah, so Java and JavaScript are two very different languages. JavaScript is typically used for web application development. Java is structured differently. It's more object oriented, whereas JavaScript is not. We can cover more about that at the end of the lesson. But another thing about asking questions, if you have questions, I'd prefer if you typed in the chat or maybe waited until like I'm done with the slide to ask. But that was a good question because I know some people may be confused between JavaScript and Java. The language we're learning is Java. Another data type that we have in Java is a char, and this stores a letter like a or underscores as well. So once again, if you look at your keyboard and you see all those symbols like the exclamation mark, the question mark, a period, each one of those by themselves is a character. And we put characters in single quotes like you see over here. If we want to have multiple characters together to form a word, yep, comma is also a character. And if we want to combine multiple characters to form a word, we would use a string data type. And strings in blue because it's different from all of these other ones. You can see short, int, long, float, double. They all start with lowercase letters, but string starts with an uppercase letter. We'll discuss this in more detail tomorrow and why string is different. But strings can store actual words, and we use double quotes for them. And the last main data type we have are booleans. And booleans store true or false values. For example, I can look outside and I can have a variable that stores whether it's sunny outside. And it's sunny outside, so then it would be set to true. If it were not sunny outside, we would set sunny to false. And that's what booleans are. They basically either have two values, true or false. So these are the main data types in Java, and they're important because when we're creating variables, unlike in other languages, we actually have to tell Java what type of data that variable will hold. So this is how we create a variable. This is the structure. First, we say what the data type is, followed by the variable name that we want to give a variable, like y or x, like you have in math, and then we give it an actual value. So here's an example of how you create a double. So over here, we're specifying that the name of this variable is double. You can see they're both in red. Sorry, the data type of this variable is double. They're both in red. We're also specifying that the variable name, which is what we're calling it, is decimal number, and the value we're giving it is 3.2. This is how you create a variable called decimal number that can store a decimal number, like 3.2. And you can make the name whatever you want. Typically, the way it works is if you have a variable that has multiple words in it, if you want the variable name to have multiple words, you cannot put spaces. So you can see over here, we don't have decimal space number. Instead, what you do is you take the first letter of each word and make it capital, except for the first word. So that's why D over here is lowercase, but N is uppercase. Okay. And if you wanted to create an int variable, we have int, which is the data type. And this tells Java that we're going to be storing an integer inside of a variable called whole number. And the value we're giving it is 5. And just like how we did with the Hello World program, we can print out variables by saying system.out.println, and inside we can put in the name of our variable. So system.out.println decimal number. Okay, and there are a couple of questions in the chat. I think Madhu's handling them. But does everybody understand everything up to this point so far? When we're creating a variable in Java, we give it a name, and we have to tell it what type of information we'll store. So doubles store decimals, ints store numbers.
When I put double decimal number equals 3.2, it still says compiler exit status 1.
Did
But
you add a semicolon at the end of the
yeah,
statement?
I added that.
Okay, we'll fix that error in a bit. We're going to switch over to REPL soon. We're going to go over some more slides for the other data types, and then we'll code it. So just to recap, we have two numerical data types, two main ones, int and double. They both store numbers, but int only stores integers, and double can store both integers and decimals, so like 5.2, negative 2.3, and 3.0. Now we'll take a look at chars in more detail. So like I said, they store a single character, like ABC, capital A, capital B, capital C, underscores, the and symbol, all sorts of stuff, but only one character. And this is really important. You want to make sure you note this. They use a single quotation. So over here we have char, which is a data type, letter, which is the variable name, equals single quote a, single quote, and then semicolon. And here we have the same thing, but we're calling the variable big letter and has an uppercase A. So when we do system.out.println letter, it's going to display the value of letter, which is A. It's not going to display the actual word letter. We'll just go through, we have two more data types, and then we'll code this with a hands-on example. So now we have strings. These can be a single character or many characters, but you have to use a double quotation, as you see over here. So we can have string name equals Angelina, string is the data type, the variable name is name, and the value it stores is Angelina. We can also have string variable equals hello world. And you can see over here we can have multiple words and multiple characters inside. And we can print out a variable just like we did before. And the last data type is Boolean, which remember is true or false. So you can say Boolean raining outside equals false, because if you look outside, it's not raining. And we can have Boolean having fun equals true, because you're all having fun. And now if we do system.out.println having fun, it will display true, because having fun is equal to true. So this will display true. Now that we have got a grasp of what these different data types are, we're going to play around with them. So I'm going to go ahead over here to our REPL.it program. I'm just going to delete lines 3 and 4 and create some empty space. So if I want to create an int variable, if I want to create a variable that stores an integer, just a second. If I want to create a variable that stores an integer, I'm going to type int, because that tells Java that my variable will store an integer. And in this example, I'm going to create a variable that stores the grade level. So I'll type int grade equals 6, because I know most of you are in 6th grade. So this is how you create a variable in Java. You can see that we're specifying that the name of the variable is grade, the data type it holds is int, and the actual value is 6. And we can display this by typing system.out.println. Remember, we have to put parentheses, and whatever we want to print has to go inside those parentheses. So we'll type grade, because that's the variable we want to print. And you have to end statements in Java with semicolons. So that's what we did here. And if we run this, it will print out the grade, which is 6. So you can see here it printed 6, which is what we expected. If I put quotes around the grade, so if I put quotes and then I ran this program, it's going to give us a different output. It's actually going to print the word grade. And the reason for this is because it treats this as a string. Whenever you use quotes and you print something, it will literally print whatever is inside of there. If you do not use quotes, it will treat this as a variable. So in this case, it looks at grade and says there are no quotes. This has to be a variable. And it looks at grade and says, okay, this variable has a value of 6. So I'm going to print out 6 and it will show up here in a second. Here it is. So this is how you create a variable and print it. And just for extra practice, we're going to create a couple of other variables. So we'll create a double and we'll call it average. Because when you're taking an average of a bunch of numbers, they may not always be integers. They may be like 3.5 is your average or 3.7, something like that. So we'll say double average equals 3.7 and we end it with a semicolon. And this is how you create a double variable. We can go ahead and print that out and it will display 3.7 over here. And you can see it displayed 3.7. We can also create a string variable like message, how are you doing? And this is a string. You want to make sure you put quotations around your message, whatever you're putting inside. We can create another variable for having fun. So we can say Boolean having fun equals true. And we can do all sorts of stuff. But does everybody understand now how to create a variable in Java? Are there any questions?
So on like the grade equals 6 thing, like it should like I did what like here, but then like it shows on the black thing it just says grade instead of 6.
Do you have quotations around grade when you're printing it out?
On like online on the first one or the second line?
On the line with system.out.println.
I think I do.
Yeah, so I'll go over it once more so nobody gets confused.
It says error class interface.
I'll paste my whole code in just a second.
Okay.
Yeah, so like Brian said, you don't need quotations. If you use quotations, it will actually print what you put inside over here. So we say system.out.println, and then we put quotations and grades inside, it will actually print grades because it thinks that's what we want to print. If we do not put quotations, it will treat it like a variable because there are no quotations. So look at grades and say, okay, grade is 6. So it's going to print out 6.
It worked now. I had quotation marks.
Yeah. So that's the difference. That's when you use quotations and not. And here's the whole code.
I have a question. For me, it's still saying compiler exit status.
Does it look exactly the same as this? Is your file name main.java over here?
Yeah.
And does your code look exactly like this?
Well, I mean, it doesn't have the stuff after the. It only has my code only has int grade equals 8 and then a semicolon and then it has and then it has like and on the next line it says system.out.println in parentheses grade and then outside of the parentheses it says semicolon and it's still like
here. So try running this. Try copying and pasting this. That's a good question, Arush. So in Java, indentation does not actually matter. I know in languages like Python, if you're coming from that background, in Python, indentation matters, but not in Java.
I attempted to write the code for like the Boolean, but like it just popped up the message saying having fun rather than true.
Do you have quotes in your println in the line that has println?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you don't want to have quotes if you want to print the value of the variable.
Okay. So
Here, I'll go over it again. Println displays whatever you put inside. If you have quotations, it prints out literally what's inside. So if I type this and I click run, it will actually print that over here. So if we take a look at that, it'll print that over here. If I delete the quotations, it treats it as a variable. So if I just print like print AKSDF, it's going to give me an error because it does not know what AKSDF is, because it thinks it's a variable, but it cannot find it. You can see right here, this is the error it's giving us. It says symbol variable AKSDF, cannot find it. So if you want to print something out literally like hello world, that's when you use quotations. If you have a variable and you want to print the value of the variable, no quotations, just type in the variable name. So it looks like that.
I have another question. What does double average mean? Like, what does that mean?
I was just demonstrating how to create different types of variables. So in our presentation, we covered like Booleans, strings, and other things. Double is the data type used for storing decimals. So that's why I just said double average equals 3.7. You can name it whatever you want.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I put my code in the chat, but I don't know if it's
Yeah, Marshall.
correct or not.
Somebody asked if their code
But
is
it
correct.
gives me an error. It actually says 2 errors, compiler exit status 1.
Yeah, so that's the same error I'm getting over here. Is there anything that you see above it?
Above the code?
Above the compiler exit status, are there more details like over here?
No, it just says 2 errors. It's a syntax error.
Okay, that's probably because you're forgetting a semicolon.
I put the
Mhm.
semicolon.
No, Ishan, the code is correct. I think she messed up her curly brace. You might need to copy paste the entire code. I can do that. Try copying in the code I pasted into the chat. The code you have is correct, but something else is wrong with it. Yeah, just copy paste what I have. There's a small issue with it.
Oh yeah, another thing, if your code is not working, you can actually copy and paste this URL over here so that we can see it and take a look.
Yeah,
So just like
paste
that.
it in the chat, Ishan.
Okay.
Here, and this is the link to mine, so you could take a look at
This
that.
is the link to my.
Okay, yeah. So the problem with yours is that you want to write the code inside the main function. So everything that we're writing so far is inside of these curly braces. So you see there's 2 curly braces at the bottom, and we have public static void main. The main function is what's going to be executed when our program runs. So whatever is inside is going to run. If you took the stuff and put it somewhere else, then nothing's going to be displayed. So that's why we want to have everything inside the main function, because that's where it's going to be run. And
Okay.
just like how we read from top to bottom, the compiler also goes from top to bottom inside the main function. So we'll do this line first, then line 6, line 8, line 10, line 12, and so on.
So did I change my code to this?
Yeah,
I put it in the chat. Is that better?
that's not correct though. It has to be inside the main function. Madhu copy. I gave you the link to my repo, so just go ahead and copy and paste mine.
Oh, is it in the chat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brian, what's your question? Why doesn't the string work? Okay, yeah. So for strings, you have to have double quotations around it. So that's another thing you want to look out for. Single quotations will give you an error. So these are single quotes over here on line 9. You want to make sure that whatever value you're giving a string is inside double quotations. So just double check that.
I have another question.
Mm-hmm.
You know
Yeah.
so the string messages says how are you doing, and then the boolean says having fun equals true, right? So like how would it show up on the black part of your screen? Like how would it show up as like um how
How
would
would it display the
You have
values?
to print it.
yeah.
You have to use
That's
a
it.
print line to make it show up over there.
Yeah, that's what
I
the
copied and pasted your code, but it still says error.
okay. When you copy and paste my code, you have to delete everything that you have and then paste my code in.
Yeah, that's what I did, but
But is this the same person that had it a minute ago?
um
You didn't fully copy the code. You're missing something at the very
Yeah,
end.
yeah.
oh, another parenthesis.
Yeah, you need to add a closing curly brace if
Oh,
it's
wait, like
above, like
this?
around the enter key. If you can't find it, then try to copy each one's code one more time, like fully.
Yeah, it looks like you missed the curly
That
brace at the
better?
bottom.
Oh, I got true.
Yep, that
Yeah.
means it's working.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yep. So this is how you create variables in Java. You have to specify the variable name, like average, message, having fun. You also have to tell Java what data type it's going to hold. So if it's going to be a decimal, this should be either a double or a float. If it's going to be true or false, that should be a boolean. If it's going to be an integer, that's going to be short, int, or long. And that's a really good question, Katie. We're actually going to cover that tomorrow. It's because you see that int, double, boolean, and if I type like float and char and all of these, you can see they're blue, but string is not. That's because these are something called primitive data types, and string is a class. We'll be going into more detail about that tomorrow.
In your code, next to the run button, there's a button called fork or something.
Yeah.
But in mine, there isn't. So what is that?
That's dealing with version control and Git. You don't need to worry about that.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're going to continue with the slides, but right before I do, there's one more thing I want to cover. So those of you who are familiar with other programming languages may know what comments are, but if you do not, that's fine. So what's going to happen when we run this code is the program is going to execute every single one of these lines. And what comments are in programming languages are parts of our program that the computer completely ignores. The whole purpose comments exist is for us programmers to read and understand what's happening. So to make a comment in Java, you type 2 slashes. And these slashes are right next to the shift key. They're on the left of the shift key. And now I can type something like grade is a variable that stores the user's grade. And you can see it's in gray over here because that means the computer is going, because it's a comment. And if I run this, it's not going to give me an error because it's going to completely ignore this. However, if I were to delete these 2 slashes and run this, you can see automatically it's already giving me an error in red. And yep, there's a bunch of errors I get. So the reason we write comments is to help ourselves understand what's happening. Let's say I had a bunch of code that I wrote and I wanted to come back to it tomorrow and understand what it's doing. So I would write a comment to say like, this is what my code is doing and here's how it works. That way it's easier for me and other programmers to understand what my code is doing and how it works. If we want to have comments that are multiple lines, so right here, this is just one line. This is a one-line comment. If we want to have comments or multiple lines like that, we're going to have to type slash. So once again, it's next to the shift key. Then we're going to type an asterisk. You type an asterisk by holding down the shift key and then pressing 8. Then we're going to press enter, type another asterisk and the shift key. And now I can type whatever I want in here. And more realistically, you would type something like, this is a program I wrote to calculate a student's grade. Here's how it works, and all that kind of stuff. The whole reason you write comments is so that your code is more organized and you can understand what's happening.
So is that a different way to write a comment?
Yeah.
You mean?
So the slash slash is one way to write the comment, and then on line 6 through 9 is another way to write a comment. And
Oh,
each
okay.
one can explain it again.
Yeah, so the slash slash is just a one-line comment. If I press enter and start typing stuff here, this is not a comment, it's giving me an error. If I use the slash and then an asterisk and then another slash and asterisk, I can type as many lines as I want, and all of these are commented out. So it's going to be completely ignored. This is if you want to write a really lengthy description of what your code is doing, then you would use a multi-line comment. That way you can type across multiple lines.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So if everybody is good with this and they understand what's happening, we can continue. But if not, if you have a question and you don't want other people to see it, you can private message one of us officers. But you should really understand this stuff because this is the very basics of Java. It's incredibly important. We're going to be doing it all the time. So make sure you understand how to create a variable and how to print it out. But if everyone's good with that, we're going to move on to something related to variables, declaration versus initialization. So far in the examples that we looked at, we created our variable and gave it a value all on one line. So we said Boolean having fun equals true. But what if I wanted to create my variable and give it a value later on? So I just have like Boolean having fun and then I set it to true sometime later in my code. I don't want to do it immediately in one line. Well, I can do that with declaration and initialization. So the way it works is first you would say what data type you have for your variable, followed by the variable name, which is very similar to what we looked at before. But now you just end it with a semicolon. Then for the initialization step, that's where you actually give it a value. So to put into context, Boolean having fun equals true is the example we looked at over here. Boolean having fun equals true. We can split it into two lines by saying Boolean having fun. And this first part over here will create the having fun variable. And then later on in our code, we can say having fun equals true. And that's actually giving it a value. So now you see these two circles over here, 1 and 2. This circle 1 refers to statement 1. Circle 2 refers to statement 2. I want you to type into chat which circle represents declaration. So take a look at declaration, take a look at 1 and 2, and just type into the chat. Yep, that's good. I see a lot of people typing in ones. Because this step over here is called declaration. You can see the colors also line up, so that was a big giveaway. But declaration is the step where you declare something. That's where you create the variable. Initialization, that's where you actually give it a value. So which circle over here represents initialization? Is it 1 or 2? 2, yeah. Yeah, that's correct. So let's come over here and practice doing that. We're going to delete Boolean having fun. And the first thing I'm going to type, well, actually, I'm going to go to the top of my main method. So I'm still underneath class main and public static void main because you want to write your code inside the main method. But over here, I'm going to type Boolean having fun and semicolon. That's it. I'm not going to give it a value just yet. So now I have these other lines of code, integrate, double, average, string message. And now after all of that, we're actually going to give it a value. So I'll say having fun equals true. And this is how you split this statement over here, like integrate equals 6, into two parts. The declaration step, this is where you create the variable, and then the initialization step. That's where you actually give it a value. And the reason for this is because in your code, you may want to create all your variables in one place and then give them values later on. One important thing to note about this is just as Madhu and I said earlier, the compiler will go from top to bottom in your main method. So if I say having fun equals true at the top, this will give me an error because it doesn't know what having fun is. Having fun hasn't been created yet. But if I put it after here, after Boolean having fun, which creates it, this will be fine. And this will not give me an error. And you can see it will print out true over here on the right. Okay, is everybody cool with that? Okay. Yeah, so that's declaration, that's initialization. Now we're going to do a short review of data types because this is really important. Go ahead to this link over here, tinyurl.com/javaQ1. I'll copy and paste the link into the chat. This is just a short review to cover everything that we've done so far with data types. There's 8 questions and it should take about 2 minutes or less. So we'll give you about 2 minutes to do it. And we'll go over the answers after 2 minutes. Just to make sure the instructions are clear, you're given some input, you're given some values, and you have to choose which data type will be the best to store that value. So we'll do the first one together. In this first example, we have the value as hello world, and we can see it's inside quotations. So we can go through the list. Is it an int? Int store integers. This is not an integer, so it's not that one. Is it a float? Float store decimals, so it's not a float. It is a string because it has double quotes and it has words and other things in it. It's not a character because it's not just one letter, it's a bunch of them together. And it's not a long because longs are a type of data type that hold really large integers.
Like when I clicked on it, like it kind of gave me all the answers,
Oh,
even
did
though I
it?
not clicked anything.
I think you
Well
posted the
then,
FAQ.
well, that's probably the wrong link then. Okay, here, use that instead.
Yeah. Please
Okay.
don't click on the link Ishan sent earlier. So
Yeah, click on the
the
second link, the
the
first one.
purpose of this like
Can you
form.
just, what's a log again?
Yeah, here, I'll go to this slide. You can take a look at it.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So Ishan will leave that slide open while you guys work on the questions. So the purpose of these questions, it's not like a grade or like, oh, it's gonna go into the grade book or whatever. Like the purpose of this is like to teach you about like the data types and give you a good review about the data types because you need to understand this foundational concept in order to continue with Java because we will be using data types throughout the next few days. So it's really important that you understand it now. And don't worry about getting it wrong because we'll explain to you the answer and why the answer is the way it is. So don't try to like cheat your way through it because there's really no point. We want you to understand the content. Because if you don't understand it now, it's going to be really hard to understand it later.
Try to answer it to the best of your abilities, and then we'll go over the answers, like Madhu said.
I have a question. So like when it says like short, int, and long for integers, like what is
Um,
classified as short? It's like it's kind of really relative. Like
we'll go over the answers in a second. Just try to do as much as you can without asking any questions. Yeah, so everybody, this is the link you should be using.
Ishan, when you go to the link, it asks you to sign in. It's not restricted to PISD or anything, right?
There shouldn't be any sign in. It worked for me in incognito.
I tried doing incognito, asked me to sign in.
Oh yeah, it requires you to sign in. So you may have to sign into Google to do it. Yep, so we'll go over the answers in about like half a minute or so. If you can't take the quiz, don't worry about it. We'll go over the questions together. But just make sure you understand everything on the slide over here. Yeah, so okay. Floats and doubles both store decimals, but the doubles will store more precision and it can also store larger numbers.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So you know the true or false thing, like, so I get the true or false, it gives it a value, but what's um what does it actually like have a purpose in the code? Like
Where would we use it?
yeah, like what, like why do you need like what is true or false actually, like what's the purpose of it? And
We'll
That's actually
cover
a
that
really good
towards the end
question.
of this
Madhu will
lesson.
be. Oh yeah, Madhu, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we'll be using the Boolean statements a lot more often towards the end of the lesson, and I
Wait,
can show you then like how it's actually significantly useful.
it's saying my answer is wrong when I say it's a string. On number 8 or like I don't know. Oh yeah, number
Ishan.
like 7 of it. It says that string is wrong.
Uh-huh. Yeah, these
Uh,
questions are shuffled. We're going to go over them now, so just try to scroll around.
yeah,
Okay.
we'll explain every question. So if you have any questions about the answer to a question, please hold it because we will go over every single
Yeah.
question.
And we're going to go over it now. So yeah, the first one we went over together. This is a string because it has double quotations and it has multiple characters.
And sorry to
Um,
interrupt, just look at Ishan's screen when going over the answers because the answers are shuffled around. It's gonna take a lot of time for you to scroll back and
yeah.
forth. So we just prefer for you to look at Ishan's screen when he goes over the answers.
Yep. So for this one, we have 1.0, which is not an integer. It is a decimal, so we can store it in a float. Once again, not an integer. It's not a string. There are no quotes around it. It is a double. It can fit inside a double. It's not a Boolean variable, a long, or a char. So that's the answer for this question. It's float and double. Whoops. For this one, we have 10,000. That's an integer, so long and int are correct. The rest are wrong. For true, that's a Boolean variable. That's a Boolean value. For 100, that's an integer, so once again, it fits inside an int, not any of the others. For this one, if you look carefully, that's a single quote. If this had been double quotes, it would have been a string, but it's single quotes. It's a single character, so it's a char. False, once again, is a Boolean because Booleans store either true or false. And then we have another decimal, 3.55, so it's going to be a float and double. When we submit this, we'll get 8 out of 8. Yeah, submit. Yes, we got 8 out of 8. And these are the answers. Yeah, and the reason Boolean variables are really, really important is because let's say you want to do something only if a condition is true. Like let's say you're making an app where the user is logging in to see some information about their doctor visit or their bank account. You only want to let them see that information if their username is correct. So that's why Boolean variables are correct because if user we can have a Boolean variable for username correct, and only if username correct is true do we actually show them that important information? So that's an application of Booleans, and they come up a lot. They're really important. So Madhu will cover them in a short bit. Yeah, but that concludes our review of data types, and I hope everybody understands that. Now we're going to move on to operators, and Madhu will start
Yeah.
sharing.
Before we begin, does anyone have any questions? Because you need to understand data types before we do operators. Someone in chat asked about arrays. We will be covering that in a few days, so do not worry about that.
I just have like one question. So like how would we tell if like something like what is like the range for an int or a long? Or
Yeah,
like a
so longs
short.
go up to 2 to the like 64. It's like 2
Yeah.
to the 63 plus 1. Ints go up to 2 to the 31 plus 1.
You don't need to worry about exactly how much does an int versus a long store. Just understand that longs will store more than ints.
Like an int should be good for like almost anything you're doing. Like you can play around. Like if you put a too big number into an int, you can try using a long.
Yeah, like try putting 1 trillion into an int, and that should probably give you an error. In those cases, you'd want to use a long.
Okay,
Yeah, like
can you see my screen?
yep.
Okay. So the next topic we'll be covering over, if no one has any more questions, is operators. So think about operators like how in math you add, subtract, multiply, or divide numbers. That's basically what operators are. So it's addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So the way that you would use operators is you can use operators to add, subtract, multiply, or divide values. So in these examples right here, I'm doing 5 plus 5, which should give us 10. 5 minus 5 will give us 0. 5 times 5 will give us 25. And 5 divided by 5 will give us 1. So I'm going to show some examples of that into Replit. So if you can switch over to Replit, can you see my Replit screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So once you're on your Replit screen, don't delete your code because you might want to look back at your code in the future. So what I recommend you do is how Ishan taught us how to comment out multiple lines. I want you guys to comment out multiple lines. So if you remember, you would do a / and then you put an asterisk, and that will comment out everything, and then we need to close it off. So then we'll use an asterisk and then a / and then it will comment out all the code in between. And the reason that we want to comment out our code here is because we don't want it to get into the way of what we're trying to do right here. And by commenting out our code, we can also look back at it in the future. So we don't want to delete our code. And now I'm going to go over the actual operators. So I'm going to type out some examples, so please try to follow along with me. So system.out.println, print line, and you want to have your parentheses, and then let's just do something basic, such as 5 plus 5. And between your operator, you want to have a space before and after for the purposes of reading your code, like for the purposes of making it easier for someone to read your code. Because if you don't have spaces, it might be a bit more compact, and sometimes people don't like it being compact. So that's why I prefer to use spaces so that it's easier to read your own code. And then if we press run at the top, we know that 5 plus 5 is equal to 10, and it should print out 10 into the console. And as you can see, it prints out 10 right here. Now, the next example I'm going to look over is subtraction. So subtraction, just like in math, works the same exact way in Java. So system.out.println, let's do a different number. Let's do 3 minus 6. And 3 minus 6 will give us a negative number. And the reason I'm showing you 3 minus 6 is that I'm trying to show you that Java can also print out negative numbers. Similarly, we can do 6 minus 5, and it will give us positive 1. And the compiler should show that in a second. And for the next example, I'm going to show you multiplication. So let's just do 5 times 5. And we know that 5 times 5 is equal to 25. And as you can see, 5 times 5 is equal to 25. So I'm going to go back to the slides. And I'll show division in a second, because division actually has some special rules. So just like how in Java that you can use variables to store the values, you can also use variables to add, subtract, multiply, or divide numbers, preferably using integers or doubles. You can't add, subtract, divide, or you can't use operators with strings, because just imagine doing like hello plus weird. I mean, you can do it, but there's a bit different rules, and we're not going to cover that in this course. So let's go back to a Replit, and let's comment out these lines. So here we have this comment, closing comment right here. Let's delete it, and then let's bring that closing comment down below. And the reason we want to do that again is so that these print statements don't get in the way of what we're trying to code right here. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create some variables, just like how Ishan had taught us earlier. So for example, let's do int number 1 equals to 5, for example. So remember, we have our data type in the beginning, and then we have our variable name, and then we have the actual value. And then, and just like if you remember, we could print out these variables. So system.out.println, let's print out our variable name. So the variable name that I gave was number 1. And then remember to have your semicolon at the end. And if you run our code, number 1 should print out 5. Yeah. So as you can see, it prints out number 5. So for now, just comment out that line of code where you print out number 1. And let's add another variable and let's do some operators with it. So next thing we can do is int number 2 equals to 4. Or let's stick with 5 actually, since 5 is pretty basic. So just like how we used operators to add two values together, or subtract or multiply or divide even, you can do the same thing with variables. So let's type out a system.out.println statement again. And remember, have your parentheses. And the way you would want to do it is you would have your variable name, so number 1, and then you would have whatever operator you want, so plus, minus, times, or divide. So in this case, I'll just do plus, and then I'm going to add the second variable. And then remember to have your semicolon at the very end. And then, as you can see, if you read it from top to bottom, Java will first create will create a box to store the number 1 in, and same thing with number 2. So number 1 and number 2 are both equal to 5. And then when we print up this statement, it's going to retrieve the value of number 1, which we have made right here. So it's equal to 5, and then do the same thing for number 2. So then we'll have 5 plus 5, which is equal to 10. So if we run our code, we should get the number 10. Yeah, as you can see, Java gave us the number 10 because 5 plus 5 is equal to 10. And for example, we can do extra things such as subtracting, multiplying, and dividing, which I will show right here. So let's create another system.out.println statement. And then remember parentheses, and let's do number 1 minus number 2. And if you know if you know what 5 minus 5 is, you know it's equal to 0, which our compiler should give us here in the console. As you can see, Java gave out 0 because 5 minus 5 is equal to 0. Now let's do some multiplication. So let's get our system.out.println again. And you're going to be typing out system.out.println a lot when you type in Java. So you better get used to it. And we're going to do number 1 times number 2. And as we know, 5 times 5 is equal to 25, just like how I showed earlier. Yep, so we get 25, and I'm going to also show division. So we have number 1 divided by number 2. And as you can see, when you add the spaces before and after the operator, it makes it a lot, I hope you notice it's a lot easier to read. Yeah, Varsha, that's what I meant by, I'll explain the division more in depth in a little bit. Java's a bit weird about division, and I'll explain it in a little. So don't worry about that for now. So if you do number 1 divided by number 2, so 5 divided by 5 is equal to 1. And here I'm going to explain Java's division. So if you go back to your presentation, so if we, what do you guys think would happen if you were to do 5 divided by 4? You would think that you would get 1.25, right? But no, Java would only return you 1. And the answer is because Java is a weird language, okay? So to explain why 5 divided by 4 is equal to 1 in Java is because the data type is actually very important. So if you think about 5 and 4, they're both ints. Oh, 1 second. Someone wants me to paste my code. Hold up. Oh, I did not mean to stop sharing my screen. Oh, let me go to the chat. Sorry. Okay, pasting my code. Sorry about that. So if we think about our example 5 divided by 4, the 5 is an int, and so is 4. So in Java, if you remember, ints can only store whole numbers. So if you were to do an int divided by an int, Java would give you an int back to you. And if you think about it, 1.25 is not an int because 1.25 is not a whole number, whereas 1.25 is actually a decimal number. So 1.25 would be stored as a double, if you go back to what Ishan was talking about. So when you do 5 divided by 4, Java would get 1.25, but it would then cut off the decimal values because Java is will only store it as an int because you are doing int divided by int. So as a result, there would be no decimal values. And the way that you would actually fix it is if one of the values you're dividing is a double. Because in Java, if you have a decimal value divided by a whole number, it would then return a decimal value. Yeah, so in chat, yeah, that is correct. You would do 5.4 divided by 4.0, and that would give you a double. And I'm going to explain this a bit more in depth. So some examples, going back to our 4 divided by 5 example. So we have 4 divided by 5. So this is a bit of a different example. So 4 divided by 5 is equal to 0.8, right, in general? But in Java, it would be equal to 0 because, remember, there's no decimal values. So the decimal values are cut off, and we're just left with 0. Now, the way we would fix it is making one of these a double. So the way that we would do this is make our 4 into a 4.0. So we have double divided by int, and we will get 0.8. And in the
Could you
other
do
example,
long by short?
huh?
Can you do like a long by a short?
Can someone answer that in chat? If you have a question, please type it out into the chat so that I don't have to.
I
Okay.
did.
Yeah, someone can answer it. So for other examples, we have 4 divided by 5.0. So it's an int divided by a double. And what this would give you is a decimal value in return. And our last example, we have 4.0 divided by 5.0. So both of them are doubles, and it would ultimately return a double again to you. And I'm going to be showing some examples of this in our code. So let's go back to our code on REPL.it. And remember this commented out block that we made? Let's delete that, and let's bring that down to the bottom. So if we do that, then it'll comment out all of our code, and nothing will be in the way. And you save all of your code without having to delete anything. So let's do some hands-on examples of division in Java. So let's get system.out.println, and let's do like 4 divided by 5, so you can see what actually is printed out. And it would print out 0 because 4 divided by 5 is 0.8, and then Java will take away the decimal, so it's equal to 0. And then let's type in the same thing. So system.out.println, and then we do 4.0 divided by 5. And as you recall, because one of these is a double, Java will return a double. So 4.0 divided by 5 is equal to 0.8. And if I run my code, 4.0 divided by 5 is equal to 8, or 0.8, I'm sorry. And let me show you the other examples I had on the slides. So we can do, instead of doing 4 divided by 5, you can do something else. You can do like 5 divided by 4.0. And this will give us 1.2 or 25. Yeah. And then I'll do another example. So system.out.println. And then we can do another example such as like 6.0 divided by 5.0, for example. And that would give us 1.2. So if you remember how we were using variables with operators, you can actually do the same thing here. So let's delete this commented out block, and let's bring it down to the bottom so it doesn't get in our way. So remember star, and then you put that slash sign. And make sure you have it at the beginning too. Otherwise, it's not going to work at all. So let's make some ints and doubles, and let's divide them together so you can better understand how division works in Java. So if I have int, let's see, I need a variable name. Whole number. Okay, int whole number. And let's equal that to 5. And remember, we have our data type, variable name, and then we have the value. And then we have our semicolon too. So that can be one of our numbers, and then we can have a double decimal number equal to 4. So data type, variable name, value, and semicolon. And then now let's try to divide the two numbers together. So what I'm doing here is system.out.println, and then I'm gonna get the whole number. I'm gonna bring that in here, and then the decimal number, I'm gonna divide it by that. So because one of them is a double, Java will return me a double. So as you can see right here, if I run it, it'll give me 1.25. Now, what if we had another whole number? So, what if we had a whole number equal to 4? So let's create another variable, int number. I can't think of any names, I'm sorry. So let's do int number equals 4. So, and then let's have another print statement, system.out.println, and then let's do whole number divided by number. And if we do 5 divided by 4, we're not gonna get a decimal value because both of them are ints. So there's a big difference here. So if I run my code, yeah, it prints. Oh, one second. It's a bit slow sometimes. Yeah, it'll print 1 because 5 divided by 4 is equal to 1. So let's go back to our slides, and I'm going to teach you how to deal with how to. So like, let's say in the case that you wanted to do 5 divided by 4. Like you call in your variables that are called like whole number and number, and you divide them together, but you get 1. The way you would fix it is called typecasting. And what this will do is it will allow you to convert your data type to another data type. So in this example I have on the screen, I have int num equals 5. And if you were to print out num, you know it's going to print out 5. And then what we can do is we can cast it to a double. So what we're doing right here is, as you can see, I have my parentheses, and within the parentheses, I have the data type that I want to cast the value into. So I have my variable num, which is 5, and then if I cast it to a double, it's going to be equal to 5.0. Might sound confusing, but I'm going to go over a lot of examples with this to make sure that we understand it. So based off of this, so if you remember that one of the numbers that you're dividing with has to be a double in order for Java to return a double, and then knowing that you can typecast an int to a double, let's try to fix some of our division issues. Okay, so 4 divided by 5 equals 0. So think about like a way of how you can use typecasting to convert one of these values into a double. Yeah, you can type it out in chat if you want. But I'm just going to go over the answers right now. So we can cast our 4 to a double. So by using parentheses, double, close parentheses. And what this will do is it will cast the integer 4 into a double. So that when we do, so what will happen then is it will do 4.0 divided by 5. And because one of them is a double, Java will return you a double. So here we're going to get 0.8. So there's another way you can do it. You can actually cast the 5 into a double to get 0.8, or you can cast both of them into a double to get 0.8. So let's go back to Replit, and let's go over a few examples of this. So let's take out our comment and let's bring it down to the bottom so that we don't need to delete our code. And then let's do a few examples where we're using typecasting. So system.out.println, and then we will have 4 divided by 5. to show you what that will do, it will give us 0. And let's look at ways that we can fix it using typecasting. So system.out.println, and then we would have our double cast. So what you would do is, oh, sorry. So you have your parentheses, and then you would type in 4 divided by 5, and then go before your 4. And what you would do is you would use the parentheses again, and then you would type in double, and then close parentheses, and then space. And then at the end, you have to have a semicolon for Java to read your code. So what this double does is it will cast the 4 into a double. So the way that this would be read, so this would be read like 4.0 divided by 5. That's how Java would read it, because I casted this 4 into a double. So if you were to run our code, this should give us 0.8. As you can see, Java gave us 0.8 right here. And we can do the other examples of typecasting that I showed. So let's do 4 divided by double 5. So what this will do is it will convert the 5 into a double. So it'll be 5.0. And what's going to happen overall is, yeah, we'll be taking a break very shortly. It's like right after the slide, we have a break. So if you can just hold on for like a minute, please. We can take a break, and we'll answer any questions you guys might have. Yeah, so what will happen right here is you'll do 4 divided by a double, and it'll be like 4 divided by 5.0. And because 5.0 is a double, it's going to return to us a double. So as you can see right here, it's going to give us 0.8 again. And I'm going to go over one more thing about typecasting that is kind of important to understand. And after this slide, we will then take a 5 to 10 minute break. So with typecasting, you can also lose precision. So I was showing that you can convert an int to a double, like 4 into 4.0, right? But like you can also convert a double into an int. So in typecasting, you can actually lose some precision. So if you go from a double to an int, Java will take out all of your decimal places. So if you look at this example, we have double num is equal to 0.8. And then we can, and when we cast our double into an int, the decimals are gone. And as you can see, it's going to give us 0. So this is the limitations, or these are some of the issues you might run into for typecasting. And I'm going to go over these typecasting limitation examples, and then we'll go on to our break. Okay. So let's take out our comment and bring it down to the bottom. And then let's go over some typecasting examples, and then we'll have our break, I promise. So if we have, for example, let's say we have like 3.5 divided by 2. And this should give us a decimal number, obviously. If we run our code, it'll give us 1.75. So 3.5 divided by 2 is equal to 1.75. But if we were to cast that double into an int, so we have 3.5 divided by 2, and we cast that 3.5 into an int, so we type in int, what's going to happen is that Java will read it like 3 divided by 2. And going back to our division rules, it's an int divided by an int. So what's going to happen is that there will be no decimal values. So if you run our code, you can see that you will get you should get 1. Yeah, because 3 divided by 2 is equal to 1.5. Yeah, so Smith, you could think about it as if it's always rounding down. But yeah, that's one way to think about it.
But just remember, like, it's not rounding down if it's negative. It's just chopping off the decimal place. Like rounding down, you can think of it that way for positive numbers. But just remember, it's just getting rid of everything to the right of the decimal.
Yeah, thank you, Ganesh. And just like how we were doing this with our numbers, we could do the same thing with variables. So I'm going to create some variables like double number or decimal number is equal to 3.5. And then I can have int whole number is equal to 2. And then if we try to print out decimal number divided by a whole number, so we know that this is going to print out a decimal because one of our data types here is a decimal. And then using our typecasting example, let's show what would happen if you were to typecast our double into an int. So we have decimal number divided by whole number. And then and if we were to cast our decimal number into an int, so I would type in parentheses, int, close parentheses, and then a space. And then and then what's gonna happen is that Java will read this like 3 divided by 2. Because as I said earlier, the decimals are cut off, gone forever. So if you run our code, what's gonna happen is that we're gonna get 3 divided by 2, which is int division, which was gonna give us 1 because there's no decimals. And that concludes like this section of operators and division. And now we can go on a short break. How long do you want the break to be, Ishan?
You guys can come back by around 2:35, so that's about 8 minutes.
Yeah, we'll start right at 2:35. So make sure to be here before then. And if you have any questions, you can just stay during this break and we'll try to answer them out for you.
Yeah. And one thing I just wanted to generally say is that repl.it, it takes a while for it to compile the program, run it, and give you back the results. There are better places to write Java code. This is one of the best online places. So at the end of the camp, we'll be giving you some software. We'll recommend some software if you actually want to write Java code that you can install on your computer. And it's a lot faster with more features. Yeah, Visual Studio Code is really nice. That's a good place to code in Java. IntelliJ by JetBrains/Google is also, that's my favorite place.
Yeah, I'll be back in a few minutes.
Yeah, and if anybody has any questions, this would be a great time to ask it during the break. Or you could just take a break and come back by 2:35. Yeah, so I've not used onbot Java. When I was doing robotics last year, we used Android Studio.
Can you program games in Java?
Yeah, I think Minecraft is made in Java, one version of it. You can make
Yeah.
games in Java. You
Oh,
can also
okay.
make Android apps in Java, so that includes Android games. And we'll be sharing more information about Java in general, like applications, where to code it, actual software, all of that at the end of the third day. So once you guys are more comfortable with Java and you know more about it, we'll share that kind of stuff so that you can
Oh,
move forward with it.
thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, or no, so that code you just wrote, that actually work, you can copy and paste like x divided by 3 plus 4 exactly as you wrote it into Java, and that works fine. If you're talking about something to solve equations, you'll have to write a program to do that. But as for that syntax, like x divided by 3 plus 4, that works in Java, as Madhu covered.
And Java code, like if you know about the order of operations, it just follows that. So it shouldn't be like too hard to code like some equation you want to make into Java.
Yeah, another important thing to note is that Java assigns from right to left, as Ms. Horton said. So if you want to set x equals something, you say int x equals 3, and it takes that 3 and puts it into the x. So just like that, if you wanted to say if you want to say like x equals 3 plus 4 times 2, you say int x equals 3 plus 4 times 2. And in Java, unlike in algebra that you may be familiar with, you can say stuff like int x equals x minus 3. Well, no, you can say something like int x equals 2, x equals x minus 2. And once again, if you just look at that as taking the thing on the right and putting it to the left, the thing on the right is x minus 2. X minus 2 is 2 minus 2, which is 0. So you take that 0 and put into x. Yeah, and Madhu fixed the formatting so you can copy and paste that into your Java program and test it out for yourself. Yeah, I think we can get started now.
Yeah, okay. Now we're gonna go over conditional statements in Java. So this is where the booleans are gonna be really effective here. So what a conditional statement is gonna do is it's gonna make your program do certain things depending on the specific situation. So for example, if it is sunny outside, if it's sunny, then you would go outside. Otherwise, you would stay home. So that's like an example of a conditional statement. And you can use, so I'm going to first go over conditional statements with numbers, and then I'm going to go over conditional statements with non-numbers. So I'm sure you remember these inequality statements from math, such as greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. But Java has two different ones. So one of them is equal to, and it is represented by two equal signs. And then one of them is an exclamation mark equal to, and that means not equal to. So I'm going to go over the bottom two a lot more within the coming slides. So the way you would create a conditional statement is you would have the word if, and then open your parentheses, and then you would have your condition in the middle, and then you would close your parentheses. And notice that there's no semicolon. I'll explain that. I'll explain why later. And the condition will evaluate to a boolean. So if you remember what a boolean is, it will hold the value true or false. And your condition must be able to be evaluated to true or false. If it cannot, then you will get an error. So an example is if it's sunny outside, That would be like your conditional statement, for example. So this an example of using conditional statements with numbers is, let's say if 3 is greater than or equal to 2, and this is true. If 3 is equal to 3. So what this means is equals means like it's the same thing as the equal sign in math. Is 3 equal to 3? That is true. Is if 3 not exclamation mark equal to. So what that means is 3 not equal to 2? 3 and 2 are not the same numbers, so this is true because 3 is not the same thing as 2. So as you can see, the conditional statement will either be true or false. And yeah, what Ishan said in chat is very important. When you're creating variables, you would use like a single equal sign. But when you're checking if two numbers are the same, you need two equal signs. So make sure to be careful about that. If you don't have two
Can
equal
you send
signs,
these slides to us?
We'll send the slides after.
Yeah.
For now, just
Okay.
try your best to pay attention.
Okay, so here we have two equal signs because we're using two equal signs to compare the two numbers. So just make sure to understand that concept. And the exclamation mark just means not. So this is the same thing as 3 equals 2, but we're taking the opposite of that. So 3 is not the same thing as 2, so it's true. And one more example, if 3 is less than 2. And we know that 2 is not greater than 3, so this is actually false. So just like how you can use like operators with variables, you can do the same thing with conditional statements. So you can create variables, numerical variables here. So we have our int a is equal to 5, and we have int b equal to 3. So these are two different variables. And using our if statement, we can compare the two variables. So if a is not equal to b, so is 5 the same thing as 3? No. So therefore, this is true. And you can also use, so the next thing I'm going to explain is using conditional statements with strings. And this is the only two you have to worry about. Using conditional statements with numbers and conditional statements with strings, because this is what you're going to use the most often. Yeah, when I have / true, it's a comment. You can comment to the side of your code. You don't have to comment on a new line. So here, a dot equals, and then you would put a string inside. And what this will do is that it will check if two strings are equal. And this looks really confusing. Don't worry, I'm going to explain this a bit more in a second. So the way that you would create your statement is you have string 1 dot equals string 2. And I'm still going to explain more of it. So string 1 here is like a variable. You can think about it like that. And then string 2 is also a variable. And what it's doing is it's checking if the two strings have the same exact content in there. So for example, we can have is ABC equal to ABC. And this is true. And because it's true, like this will evaluate to true, and you could store this into a Boolean. So here we have our Boolean strings are equal is equal to whether this is true or false. And if Java cannot say that this is true or false, you're going to get an error because you can't store a value that is not true or false into a Boolean. And let's go for another example. We have is XYZ dot equals ABC. Is XYZ the same thing as ABC? I hope you said no, because they are not the same thing. So this would evaluate to false. And this Boolean, strings are equal, is going to be equal to false. And where you can also use conditional statements with these inequality signs and dot equals. So I'm going to go over to Replit, and let's go back here. And then let's take our comment out. So delete this comment right here, and then bring it down to the bottom. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to practice using our dot equals, and we're also going to be using our if statements along with these symbols. So the way you would do it is you would type in the word if, and then type in parentheses, and then you would have a conditional statement within those parentheses. So our conditional statement could be, for example, if 3 is greater than or equal to 2. And the reason that Java gives me a red line right here is because I need to have something after the if statement. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to press enter, and then I'm going to hold down shift, and then above your enter or return key, there's a curly brace. And if you press it, it'll give you these curly braces, and then press enter again, and then it'll automatically format your curly braces. And if you're not able to find the curly brace button, I can paste it into the chat if you want to use it. Or Ishan posted it too. So remember, I'm going to do it again if you missed it the first time. I'm going to look for my curly brace button. And the way you do it is you have to hold on shift, and then there's a button that looks like a bracket. You see to hold shift and press that button, and it'll make both of your curly braces together. And then what you're going to do is once you type in your curly brace, you're going to press enter right after, okay? And what this will do is it will format your curly braces so that it's a lot more readable. So now that if in the case that 3 is greater than or equal to 2, we're going to make our code do something. And let's just do a system.out.print. System.out.println with quotations, 3 is greater than
My
or
code doesn't work.
3 is greater than or equal to 2. And
My,
once you type in that 3 is greater than or equal to 2, you want to just run your code and see what Java will return. And it should return this print statement. If your code is not working, please use my Replit link, which I posted in the chat. Okay, so to continue on, we can make our Java code run a series of statements in the case that 3 is greater than or equal to 2. And what you can also do is it cannot only run one statement. You can have it run multiple statements. So let's run another statement here. So system.out.println, and we can just print hello exclamation mark. And remember to end with the what's it called, semicolon. And notice right here, I don't have a semicolon. Be very careful to make sure you don't have a semicolon here, because if you do, it can kind of mess up your code a little bit. So let's run our code again, and we can see that it prints out these two statements because 3 is greater than or equal to 2. So let's go over another example. If we can do if 3 is greater than or equal to 5. And we know this is not true right off the bat. So let's try to have it print some statements if it's true. So system.out.println 3 is greater than or equal to 5. And then remember semicolon at the end. And 1 second, Replit's a bit slow. Okay, if I run my code, it is not going to print out the statement. And the reason is because this statement is actually false. 3 is not greater than or equal to 5. So as a result, it will not print out the statement down here. It'll print out these statements because these are the statements from before. So 3 is not greater than or equal to 5, so therefore it's not going to print any of this out. The statement is false. And let me just make sure to forget anything. Okay, variables. You can also use variables with your if statements. So this code doesn't get in the way, like this console statement. Let's bring down our commented out line, and let's bring that down to the bottom. And let's create some variables, and let's compare the variables, and I'll show you how to use if statements more. So we can have int number 1 equals to 5, and then I could do int number 2 equals to 5. And let's compare these two numbers. So if number 1 is, like, let's check if the numbers are equal. And remember, you need 2 equal signs, not 1. So equal to number 2. And then remember, press enter, curly brace, enter. And we're going to make our Java code do something if it's true. So let's do system.out.println. And let's say number 1 is equal to number 2. And let's put a semicolon at the end, run our code, and it should print out that number 1 is equal to number 2 once it loads. Yep, as you can see, number 1 is equal to number 2 because 5 is equal to 5. And you can also compare doubles with each other. So double number 3 equals to 5.0. Double number 4 is equal to 6.0. And you can also equal to 5. Java will automatically put in that 0.0 at the end. So let's compare the 2 statements. So if number 3 is equal to number 4, then let's print out that number 3 is equal to number 4. So system.out.println 5.0 is equal to 6.0. So if you were to run it, this would actually be false because these 2 variables, they're not 5.0 is not equal to 6.0. And as a result, it is not going to run anything within these curly braces. Okay. Let me just make sure what else I'm forgetting. Comparing strings. Okay. You can also compare strings, not just doubles and ints. And let me actually go over one more thing with comparing doubles and ints. So let's say we have our number 1 right here. We have our number 3. One of them is 5.0 and the other is a 5. So let's think about what's going to happen if you were to actually check if they're equal to each other. So number 1 equal to number 3. And what this does is right here, we're comparing 5 to 5.0. I'm going to press enter, curly brace, enter, and let's print out 5 is equal to 5.0. And then we can see how Java treats ints versus doubles. Katie, yeah, I mean, it can be, you can print it out however you want it to. I could do, I could type it like this, number 1, it doesn't really matter. So I just have it printed out like this. It means the same thing, but I can type in whatever string I want in here, and it'll print out exactly what is in those quotation marks. So going back to our example of comparing 5 to 5.0, let's see what happens when we compare 5 to 5.0. Like, is 5 equal to 5.0? That's what Java's looking at right now.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I put if 3 is greater than or equal to 5, and then I put my string, but it gave me an error. But the next time I did it, it does the code for the last one I did.
Did you forget to put these curly braces? Because if you don't put the curly braces, it can really mess up your code.
Yeah, I put the curly braces.
And are you sure you did not put a semicolon right here after the if statement?
Yeah.
Okay, can you share your link with us?
Yeah.
One of our officers can look at it. So going back to our example of checking if 5 is equal to 5.0, as you can see, Java says that they're equal to each other. But let's go back and like if you were to do like 5 equal to 5.1, they're not the same thing because 5 is not the same as 5.1. So next thing we're going to look at is comparing strings. So let's take out our comment and bring it towards the bottom because the code is getting a bit confusing right now to read. So let's create some strings and let's compare the strings, and I can show you what happens when you use dot equals. So let's say if you remember, this is what it would look like. ABC, so make sure you have your strings, like string quotation marks, dot equals ABC. And this is kind of what it would look like. You would just have ABC equals ABC, and this would return true. But the thing is, even though it returns true, nothing will print out because I'm not telling Java to print anything out. So make sure to understand that. And what we can do is, because this results in true or false, I can put it into an if statement. So if ABC is equal to ABC, so make sure you have your parentheses at the beginning and end of your if statement. So if ABC is equal to ABC, let's have Java print out something. So remember the curly braces and then press enter, and let's print out ABC is equal to ABC. Okay. And if you run our code, it should print this out. Yeah, ABC is equal to ABC. Now let's look back at this example, and let's put a capital A. And think about what would happen if you were to run our code. Like, is ABC equal to capital A, B, C? Just think about it for a second, and then I'll run the code. So if I run the code, what's going to happen is that this is false because it's literally looking at every single letter and checking if it's equal to the other string. So because it's false, it's not going to print out anything. And just like how we used variables, we compared variables, we can compare strings too, like string variables. So let's create some strings. String, let's see, string, let's see. I'm gonna think about a string. Okay, let's call like string type equals car or whatever. Okay, and make sure you have a semicolon at the end. And then let's create another string called like str. I can't think of anything. Actually, let me think about a better name. Ishan, can you have any ideas?
Model.
Okay, model. Thank you. String model equals car. Okay, thank you so much. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare type and model. Okay. So if type dot equals, and then I would open my parentheses, and then I'll type in model, which is the second string. This is how you would format your if statement. You have your first string here, then you have the word dot equals, and then you would have your second string within these parentheses. Okay. And then you would press enter, curly brace, enter, and let's print out type is equal to model. If you run our code, it should print out that type is equal to model. Yep, it will print out type is equal to model. And okay, I'm gonna go back to the slides again. So we just went over the slide. It checks if strings are equal using this method called dot equals. And you can compare a string before the dot sign and compare a string after the dot sign, or in the equals sign within the parentheses. So here. So now we're going to go over like more complex conditional statements. And what we're going to do here, for example, is we're going to compare like the temperature. So what each of these statements do, I'm going to go over it. So you can have a conditional statement before the symbol and one after the symbol. And these must evaluate to true or false. And what's going to happen is it's going to compare, it's like once it's true or false for both sides, it's going to check if both of them are true. And if both of them are true, it's going to return true. But if one of them is false, it's going to be false. So the way I want you to think about it is like this symbol, you would have like true and false. But true and false, like both of them are different, so it's just going to be false. And if both of them are true, they're going to be true. So another symbol that we have is an OR symbol. And these are like right above your return key or enter key. And what this does is it checks if one of them is true. And if one of them is true, then the Java code will say it's true overall. But if both of them are false, then it's obviously going to be false. And then the last one, exclamation mark, is like a not sign. It's like it means just do the opposite. Just take that Boolean statement and do the opposite of it. So in this example, 1 second, let me just bring this a bit back up so it's easier to look at. Okay. In this example right here, as you can see, I split up my conditional statement into 2 pieces. So let's look at this piece by piece. Like, don't look at the whole thing at once because it might get really confusing really quickly. So let's look at this part by part. So we have our variable called temperature, and we're checking if temperature is greater than or equal to 50. Okay, that's one conditional statement. It can return true or false. And then what I'm doing here is I'm doing and. This is like an and sign. So here, let's look at our other conditional statement. Is temperature less than or equal to 90? And as you can see, both of these will return true or false. And what we can do with these true or falses is that we can compare them. So with this and sign, I'm checking if both of them are the same thing, or are both of them true. And let's say in this case that both of them are actually true, then what's going to happen is that Java will run your code based off if it's true or not. But if we look outside that if statement, there's like an exclamation mark, which means take the opposite of what just happened. So if this was true on the inside, then Java will take the opposite and say it's false. So it seems really confusing, and I'm going to go over a lot of examples because this part's a bit more complicated in general. So let's go back to our code, and let's take this comment out block, and let's bring it down to the bottom. And let's create an int called temperature. And let's make our temperature equal to 60. So if you remember, we have if temperature is greater than or equal to 50, we can have the console print out that it's warm. It is warm outside, period. And if we run our code, it should print out that it is warm outside because 60 is greater than or equal to 50. So now let's look at another if statement using the word temperature, or using a variable temperature. So if temperature is greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to 100, we can print out it is not boiling hot outside. I recommend you write down everything. If you can't, don't worry about it. I'll have the code that you can use afterwards. But I recommend you write down the code because it'll help you learn better. So here I'm checking if temperature is less than or equal to 100. So because 60 is less than or equal to 100, we're going to print out it's not boiling hot outside. But now let's think about it. We can combine these conditional statements into one line. So let's look at if temperature is greater than or equal to 50. And we can also look at another conditional statement, temperature less than or equal to 100. And the way that you would have 2 conditional statements in the same line is you would have to use one of these things from the chart, like one of these symbols, okay? Or not one of these symbols, one of these 2 symbols, okay? So I'm going to use the and sign. So it's if you press Shift 7 2 times, you'll get that symbol in. And then after that symbol, we can have our other conditional statement, less than or equal to, temperature less than or equal to 100. So this is the way that you would have 2 conditional statements in one line. And what we're going to do is I'm going to press enter, curly brace enter, and I'm going to print out system.out.println. Oh, here's the link. The system.out.println. It is warm outside. And as you can see, if I run my code, it's going to check if 60 is greater than or equal to 50, which is true. And then it's going to check if 60 is less than or equal to 100, which is also true. So because both of them are true, we're going to run what's inside the if statement. So let's change our variable temperature to something like like 150, okay? And let's think about this statement again. If temperature, so if 150 is greater than or equal to 50, we know that is true. And let's look at our other conditional statement. Is 150 less than or equal to 100? That is not true. So as a result, because I'm using this and symbol, it means that both of them has to be true. But in this case, only one of them is true. So we're not going to run the code that is in the statement. So as you can see, it says it's printing out as warm outside. Let me just write down a few more letters so that we know that these two are different from each other. Yeah, so as you can see, this one is not printed, but rather this one, because 150 is greater than 50. And then what we can also do is we can also use an OR statement. So if you go above your enter key and you press down shift, it would look like that. So let's use that in our if statement. So if temperature is greater than or equal to 50, or so hold shift above your enter key, press that slash sign 2 times, and it'll give you the straight bar. And then we can type in our second conditional statement right afterwards. Temperature less than or equal to 100. And we close off our parentheses. And each one typed it in chat if you are having trouble finding it. So you can just copy it from the chat and paste it into the code. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my curly braces, and I'm going to have my print statement, system.out.println. And then we can just print that either the temperature is greater than 50, or it is less than like 100, for example, or both. And then we can have our semicolon at the end. And then we could run our code, and it should return true because 150 is greater than 50, for example.
Just to quickly explain what's happening for and, which is that symbol about the 7, both conditions have to be true in order for it to do the code inside that block. With the or, either one of them can be true in order for it to execute those statements.
Thank you. And that kind of explains like using these complex conditional statements. So we're also going to look at using this with strings. And then I think after I explain a bit more of these conditional statements, we'll be done for the day. So we can remember how we were using strings in our conditional statements. Let's try to use that again. So let's bring this down here. And then actually, you can use like these complex conditional statements with strings, but it's just I can't find a really good example.
I think
Actually,
we should give it for strings because it's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, it's exactly the same thing. Like what you would do is you would also use these symbols again, and then you could compare your string to something else. I'm just gonna go over one example if you guys don't mind. So I'm gonna copy over a code from before with the car and model. I'm gonna bring it down to the bottom.
Wait, Madhu, really quickly.
Yeah.
Can you just check the chat?
Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna go over one example with dot equals because we're a bit short on time, so I don't want to spend too much time like I have been on the other parts. So I can also use these this and sign. Oh, sorry. I can use this and sign, and what I can do with that is I can write another conditional statement. So is car dot equals car or dot equals to type, and if they are, I can just run the program. And both of them should be true. Yeah, so type is equal to model. And I'm gonna speed through this part a bit, but I can give a refresher on it tomorrow. So in the case that this is like not true, we can actually make your Java code do something else. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna press enter, I'm gonna type in else, and I'm gonna press enter, and I'm gonna do the same thing with the curly braces. And what this means is if the condition is not true, it's going to run the statements that are in the else command. So what this would look like, for example, is I'm gonna type in system.out.println, type is not equal to model, for example. And I'm gonna edit my conditional statement so that it could be false. So cars equals to type. This is false. So because one of these is false, the whole thing is false. Because remember, I'm using my and sign. So because it's false, I made Java run these statements instead. That type is not equal to model. Like literally, I wrote down type is not equal to model. And Java will run the code that's in the else statement because this is false. And if it's true, it'll run the code within the if statement. And I'm going to go over one more example where you can use if statements, and it's a bit more involved, but I can always give her a refresher on it tomorrow if you don't understand it today. So just like how you have your else statements, you can do else if. And think about this as the same thing as an if, except it will only run if the previous if statement was false. So if this is not true, then it's going to run the next else, and this is an else if, so I can put a conditional statement right here. So I can type in if car dot equals car, and I'm going to print out car is equal to car. And then what it's going to do is it's going to check if this if statement is true. If that statement is false, it's going to go to the next else. And because this is an else if, it's going to check if this is true. And if it's true, it's going to print this out. If it's false, it's going to look for the next else. And there's no next else, so it's not going to do anything. So I hope this makes sense. I'm going to add on to this example a little. So I'm going to do else. Oh, I don't know what that was. I could do else, and then I'm going to have another pair of curly braces, and I'm going to print out like hello or something, for example. And remember to have your semicolon at the end. And I'm rushing a bit through this because we're a bit low on time. So if you don't understand it, I can explain again tomorrow. And I'm going to make this else if statement purposely false so I can show you how this would work. So I'm going to do car dot equals car, and both of these are different because capital R is not the same as lowercase r. So this is false. And because it's false, it's going to look for the next else. It's going to check if this is true or false. This is actually false. So it's going to go to the very last one, which is an else. And it will print this statement if everything before it is false. So I hope that makes sense. And that I think that kind of concludes everything I wanted to explain.
Yeah, I put another link to the chat, so you can click on that and take a look at another example with temperatures. It prints out if it's too hot, if it's nice outside, or if it's cold. For the homework, we're going to have, you can see over here, it says letter grade. Kanishka will explain that.
Kanishka, you want to be sharing screen here?
Okay.
Yeah, because you also need to show the replit.
Yeah. So, 1 second. So in the chat, there's the replit link. So when you click on the replit link, you'll come to this page. Oh wait, sorry. Okay, yeah. Ishan just posted the homework link in chat. And when you click on the homework link, you'll come to a page like this. And at the top, you see fork and run. So basically, this is Ishan's.
Just a second. Everybody, make sure you're following along because this is how you're going to be doing the homework, and you also have to like send it to us. So make sure you're following along with Kanish.
Yeah. So basically, this is Ishan's code. So you won't be able to edit it. Like if you try to add something, it's gonna bring up this pop-up of saying fork and edit this REPL. So basically, all you need to know about forking right now is that it makes a copy of the code, which you can then edit. So you can either click fork at the top or like start typing something and this pop-up will come up, and click the fork button. So when you do that, you see now it says my name at the top rather than Ishan's. So I've made a copy of this file in my own, like, that I own, and that like I can now edit it. So, like I can like write stuff and the fork stuff won't come. So now I'll give everyone a minute to do that. And if you have any problems with that, like speak up or write in the chat, because you need to like do this to do the assignment.
And the second assignment will also be a Kahoot that you guys get to do. Okay, somebody
Yeah.
wants you to do it one more time.
Okay. So what we're gonna do is we click on the second link that Ishan sent, the latest one. And what that will do, it will open up this page, or let me zoom in a bit so it's easier for you guys to see. It'll open up this page, and at the top left, you can see Ishan owns it. And what you want to do is you can click fork at the top, and that will make a copy for you, which you can edit.
But where do we turn this in?
So after this meeting, what Ishan will do is he will send an email with the slides. He's going to send an email for you to submit your homework in. And what you need to do is at the link at the top of your screen, so Kanish can highlight it. Yeah, highlight that link and then paste it into the Google form we will send you. And the goal of the homework is for you to apply what you learned today. It's not
Okay.
necessarily a test. And we will also send you the slides. So in case you forgot anything, you can look at the slides, and we'll send you the Replit links that we used in class today if you want to look into that also.
Okay.
And there's also a recording of this, which Yishan will send to within the email. So don't need to worry about that either.
So if everyone's like made a copy, I can now start explaining the assignment. The assignment is, first of all, you're gonna write below this line. You're gonna write right here. You don't have to change anything before that, okay? So what you have to do is when you click run, it's gonna ask you to enter a grade between 0 and 100. So let's say we enter 20. Well, right now it did nothing because we haven't coded it yet. But later, what we want to do is, yeah, you're right, Madhu. There's an So what you want to do, or this is the problem. The students in Mrs. Avery's class aren't getting their assignments back, and this is because Mrs. Avery doesn't know how to make a number grade into a letter grade. But how you do that is if the number grade is a 90 or above, the letter grade is an A. If it's from 80 to 89, it's a B. If it's 70 to 79, it's a C. And if it's below a 70, it's an F. So we want you to make a program that will take in a number, like an int, that Mrs. Avery provides and give her back what the letter grade for that grade should be. So here you have the variable called number grade, and basically whenever you typed in whatever number was here, that number goes into number grade. So you don't have to worry about that right now, exactly how that happens, but just whatever number you type in here will be number grade. And you have to write a program here using number grade to return whether the number grade is an A, a B, a C, or an F. So are there any questions about this assignment? where is D and E? There is no D and E. It just goes from A, B, C, and if it's below 70, it's F. Uh,
So you're using a lot of if statements here, right?
yeah, we're gonna be,
Maybe.
or
That's for you to figure out. We'll go over it
yeah,
tomorrow.
yeah, like
Yeah, we want you to kind of think about the problem by yourself and try to work on some kind of like small project without getting like direct help. Because we kind of want you to like apply what you learned and then think about how you're going to solve the problem. That's like where the problem solving aspect of programming comes in.
There isn't a Google Classroom, but we'll just be giving you the link to the Google form and the YouTube video link once this is posted up there. There is not a Google Classroom.
Okay, I think we can do the Kahoot now, right?
or
Yeah.
do we want to just assign the Kahoot or do the Kahoot?
How many questions are there again?
There's like 30.
You don't have to go through all of them.
Yeah. Okay. I guess we can do the first few together.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll start the Kahoot then.
Okay. Yeah. So we're doing a Kahoot now for you guys, and Kanishka will share the join link.
So, oh yeah, you guys can see, and the pin is
Yeah, we're not starting right now. We're gonna wait for people to join, but we're gonna start soon because
Yeah,
it's
we want to go through as many problems as
When does
possible.
class end?
around 3:30.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're gonna start soon actually. So make sure to join. And this is just for fun to make sure you guys understand the content, and we'll be explaining stuff.
Yeah, we want to start this, like join as soon as possible so we can start as soon as possible and cover as much content as we can.
And also make sure to use your real names. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Don't worry if you couldn't join. Just go through the problems if you can't join in time.
okay. As soon as this hits 3:20, I'm starting.
Arno, do you need the link to it? It's kahoot.it. And the code is 8550611. Okay.
You know what? No one seems to be joining. I'm starting. Java Day 1 review.
Wait, can you share the system audio so we can listen to the music?
Okay.
Yeah, music is the most important thing.
Nice. That's really great. 26
Yes.
people got it correct. That's
Everyone got it. Now number 1. Great.
100% accuracy so far. Good job. Kanishka, everybody answered, so.
Okay. Yeah, it's a double because there's a decimal place.
Ishan, you jinxed it.
Yeah.
Okay.
The reason that it's not a char because it's not one singular letter and there's double quotations.
And there's a bunch of letters, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, Kanish, we can skip it. When there's 26 people. Oh wait, there's 27?
Okay,
Yeah.
so the reason that it's a boolean here is because it's true or false, and the true or false is not enclosed with quotations. So as a result, it's not a string. And the reason it's not a char is because it's not a single letter enclosed with single quotations. So I hope that makes sense.
I think that's everybody.
Okay. Yeah.
So the reason that false is not a double is because it's not a number, and false, I mean, I'm sure that explains everything. You can go next.
Let's see the leaderboard. Okay, cool. We have some shifting. Yeah, that is true. Yeah, so that's a char. It's not a string because if you look, it's just one letter, but there's also single quotes. That's what should give it away. There's only one quote on either side. Yeah, it's a game of misclicks and internet. That's really true.
And I think this is the last data type question, so six or 27.
For anyone that said it's a string, it's not a string because there's no double quotation. It's an int because it's a whole number.
I have so many misclicks.
Don't worry about it.
Now read carefully.
Yeah, this one is okay. So people clicked the blue one. So the problem with the blue one is there's no semicolon, so you have to be really careful. The problem with the green one is there's no system.out. You have to include the out as well. So that's a close one. I thought people would choose the yellow one. Oh wait, people
Yeah.
choose the yellow one. Okay, so the problem with the yellow one is it uses single quotes. Remember, single quotes are for characters. If you're having multiple things, it has to be in double quotes, not single quotes.
Yeah, this was a tricky one. Ooh.
And if you guys have to go, you can go ahead and leave if you don't have any questions. But if you want to continue playing, you're welcome to stay. So it looks like, yeah, the asterisk is used for multiplication. So let's start.
Probably a misclick.
We can hope it's in this click.
I gave too much time for these problems.
Yeah, okay, so from now on, we're going to start skipping around when 24 people or 25 people answer. Save time.
Yeah, this one, yeah, it's just the asterisk. Still in the front.
I hope everybody knows this one.
Just 25. Yeah. Okay, great. No shifting. Yep.
It's
Yeah.
not 5/6 because that's not how you would type it out in Java.
Ooh. $25.
Oh, let's
man.
explain this one. So basically, when you do 4 divided by 5, the answer is 0.8. Now, a lot of you may be tempted to think because it's an integer, we round up, but we don't do any rounding. We just cut off the part after the decimal point. So 0.8 becomes 0. You don't round it up, you don't round it down, you just cut off everything after the decimal. So it's 0.
Yeah, this is int division because they're both ints.
So good job to the 10 people who got that right. Is there any
Oh.
shifting? Oh, look at that.
Yep.
Wait, is red always right? Anyway, it wasn't. Anyways, yeah.
Not always right. Like, yeah.
Yes, in this case, when you're casting, you have to put whatever you're casting it into in parentheses, followed by the variable name. So the variable comes after like the double stuff in parentheses. So that's why it's the right answer.
Yep.
More shifting. This looks interesting.
How would I put the answers for this one?
Yeah.
These are all right?
All of them are right except for, well, wouldn't the
Oh,
first yellow would be
oops.
correct as well?
Yeah, yellow's right.
Yellow's correct too.
That was
I
that was
think
me messing up.
yellow, red, and green are correct. And it looks like everybody got that, so that's good. You could do any one of those 3 options. Yellow and red are casting, and then green is doing 4 divided by 5.0.
Kanish scammed 16 people.
Yeah, sorry about that. Let's see how the rankings affected.
Yeah, not the ranking.
Not too much.
Now it's actually based
I mean,
on
everyone got that one right.
Yeah. Yeah, I just asked for greater than, so that's why red is the correct answer. Ooh.
So it's 3:30. You can leave at any time, but if you want to continue playing, you can go ahead and stay. We'll be using the same link for tomorrow.
See, it's not always red. And the greater than sign has to come before the equals. The other way around does not work.
Yeah, that's not a thing. Equals greater than. It's greater than equal to. Okay, we can skip this. Okay, so from now on, when the first time 20 people answer, we're going to skip to the next problem to save time.
Yeah. So you better be in the first 20.
Yep.
And it's the same as previous question. No shifting.
Oh, nice. The 20th person made it. Okay, you can skip it. Yeah, I don't know
Oh
if
yeah, it's 21.
dropped the meeting. Okay, so this is a good one to talk about. So when we're checking for equality, we use two equal signs. If we're actually doing assignment like x equals 3, x equals 2 plus 5, that's when you use one equal sign. So that's where the answer is red, if we're checking equal to.
Yeah. Ooh. Okay,
Nice.
great. Or not.
Oh, okay. Looks like we're gonna
Yeah,
talk
I
about
didn't
it.
cover this that much today.
Okay, so for the red triangle, that's not equal to. For the blue one, that's the symbol for and. So if you're checking if something is true and something else is true, that's when you use the blue one. The yellow one is for or. So like if somebody asks you, do you want pizza or hot dogs? You would say, I want hot dogs, I want pizza and hot dogs. All of those are true. The not symbol is the exclamation mark.
Yeah. Ooh, that got some people.
Yep.
It's a double and. Oh, Ishan, you gave away the
Yeah,
answers.
I didn't realize it. Good job. Looks like the race is really close. I think the second place person's like 200 behind or something. Okay, good job, everybody. It's a semicolon. We never ever typed any of the other ones. So
Go to.
5 questions left.
Yep, it's the double slash.
That's for multi-line comments, and it also wasn't one of the options over here.
Okay.
One more person has an answer. Okay,
Okay.
good. Yeah, okay, so I'd like to explain this one. So, oh wait, it's not, okay, there it is. Yeah, so over here we have a variable called temperature. It's set to 60. And what this if statement is doing is it's checking if temperature is greater than or equal to 60 and temperature is less than or equal to 80. So both of those have to be true for the print play outside. 60 is greater than or equal to 60 and 60 is less than or equal to 80. So both of those are true. It's going to print play outside. If temperature had been like 1,000,000, it would have printed stay inside. But that's why the answer is the blue option.
Yep. Ooh, that's some shifting.
3 questions left.
Someone else answering?
Okay, there. Stay inside. Yep, that's correct. Because 81, first off, 81 is greater than or equal to 60, so that part's true. But the second part, temperature is less than or equal to 80, that's false. 81 is greater than 80. So it's not going to print play outside, it's going to go to the else. The else is executed if the stuff before it is not true. It's kind of like do this, otherwise do that. So the else acts as otherwise, and that's why it prints stay inside.
Ooh.
2 questions left. Hmm.
Only 20 now?
3, 2, 1.
Okay.
Okay, so for this one, we have an else if. So the way it works is it checks if the if is true, then it does whatever the if says. If that's not true, then it goes to else if. If the else if is not true, it goes to else. That's the way it goes down. So 59, it's not greater than or equal to 60. So the first off, that part, first part, temperature is greater than or equal to 60, that's false. So it's not going to do that because it's false. Then it goes to the else if, and it's going to check if temperature is greater than or equal to 40. It is, so it prints play inside. And that's why the answer is the yellow one. What was the one that a lot of people chose instead? Okay, the
Stay
green
inside.
one. Wait, so it's not play outside because the 59 is greater than or equal to 40. That's why it's play inside.
Yeah, it's not stay inside because this condition was true.
Mhm.
So this last else never happened.
Okay, and we have one more question left. Let's see what happens. Oh, I think I know what's going to happen.
A bit suspenseful music.
Yeah. I thought it was supposed to be like Christmas themed, right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking
I
too.
thought that's what we selected.
Creepy music.
Maybe that's for the last question.
Okay, we'll wait for the end. We'll wait for the
You'll
last.
wait? Okay.
Yeah, we'll wait. It may make a difference for the top 3. We'll see. Yeah. Let's see. Great job, everybody. Stay inside, 17 people. Okay, so it's not play outside because is 30 greater than or equal to 60? I don't think so. So that's not true. So it goes to the else if. Is 30 greater than or equal to 40? It's not. So then it goes to the else. And the else runs if all the other stuff was false. And in this case, all the stuff about was false. So it prints stay inside. That's the answer. And let's see who our winners are. Okay, Java Day 1 review podium. In third place, we have Anushka. Congratulations. In second place, we have Arush. Congratulations. And in first place, we have, let's see, Ishwar. Congratulations to everybody. And we hope you had fun today. Thank you so much to the 23 of you for sticking with us all the way to the end. I know we went overtime today. That's not going to happen tomorrow. We'll work on keeping it shorter. But we hope you had fun and learned a lot. And it looks like a lot of you did because lots of people, like the majority of people got a lot of the questions correct. So if you have any questions, you can stay back, but otherwise you can leave. We'll send out an email with the homework and other instructions. See you tomorrow.
Yeah, have a good day.